This week on The Dead Life, I'm talking with Diane Goldner. She's a healer, a mother, and an accomplished author. I've known her for many years and consider her to be one of the best in her field and a friend. You can follow me on Instagram at Medium Allison and follow me on my Facebook fan page. You can see me live in Dallas, Texas on February 12th. Tickets are available at AllisonDubois.com. Diane, thanks for joining me on The Dead Life.
Oh, it's a thrill to be here with you.
So, with the last 2 years, it's been stressful. And so people just want to feel good again. That's where people are. During the pandemic, there's been so much fear and turmoil. How can people heal through the stress of this virus?
Oh, gosh. I think nature is one of the most healing things anyone can do. Just taking a walk in a forest or by a lake or by water is just very soothing. And then, of course, we could get more metaphysical, meditation, just noticing your breath is just one of the most powerful things you can do. So, when we get stressed, we tend to breathe more shallow. And what you want to do is breathe from the belly and just allow the breath to go in and out without you controlling it.
One of the breathing mantras that helps me, and maybe it'll help some of our listeners as well, is inhale willingness and exhale willfulness. I am a willful soul, and you do it as many times as you need to feel centered or better.
Yeah.
And it's helpful.
Yeah. So I do something like I breathe in, I am the pure self. And then on the out breath, whatever I want to bring into manifestation. So I am deeply relaxed. I'm completely relaxed. I'm totally at peace, radiantly healthy. And over time, it's an affirmation. If you really vibrate that, you create it. And then, of course, you have to think of your intention every day and whether your actions are in alignment.
I'm finding that people are getting stressed because they turn on the TV a little too much. And I would like to say to Hollywood, stop making so many dramas that end with something unhappy. We need more rom-coms. We need comedies. We want to mentally check out. If you love us, you care about your audience, make something uplifting for God's sake and stop making all the doom and gloom. We don't need any more doom and gloom. We got the real stuff.
Amen, sister. Although I enjoy some dystopian things, I have to be really careful what I watch. If the vibration brings me down too much, if there's too much violence, I just can't watch it.
I'm feeling like I'm sort of living in a dystopia right now, so I don't need the artificial one on the screen to tell me what it would be like. I feel like I can report on it myself. And it's just been, everybody's trying to find this happy place to be. And we watch football. Like Joe and I watch our college games, and that gets us in our zone. And we cook something, that goes with the game. And that's how we mentally check out. And I have people often say, oh, you got to watch this murder show. And I'm like, oh, yeah, because I did that for 20 years. So I'm thinking, no, I'm going to watch something like I'll watch Hacks, which was hilarious. It was Jean Smart, right? I think that's who the lead was. She was great. And that's how you mentally check out. Or music. I find music very healing, very soothing. And going to sleep, if somebody is a person who overthinks everything, put on some Zen spa on your Alexa or, listen to something that helps you to disconnect from the physical world and kind of go within. I find that helpful.
Comedy is great because you just really let go, and it's,
Well, and I've got some silver and blue that might show up under my makeup and in my bangs because last night we were filming with our daughter, two of our daughters, and we decided to do like an astrological comedy skit where
Oh.
all of the astrological signs were making fun of each other, but super Mean Girl style to put, because they want to put it on social media. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess people need a good laugh right now. So I was Aquarius and had my face
Oh,
painted.
that
It was
sounds
fun.
great.
It was fun though. So every generation has known what stress is, but we live in a time where we know what to do about it. What do you do personally? Is it the meditation that you just spoke of, or do you do visualization techniques as well?
I do everything. I meditate every day. I just have to do that before I start my healings, find out where I am, bring myself into a great state. And I like to take a walk or exercise. I bicycle by the beach or just around
That's
the
good.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
For
And
me,
yeah.
for me, before I do readings, I just talk to the dead. They just calm me because I know they've got our back. I have
That's
faith.
beautiful.
And so I'll just say, help me bring this person through in the best interest of my client and focus their energy.
I
So,
do something similar because I bring in various angels and saints and ask them to be present. So, yeah.
I know religion is something that people, it's controversial to some people. Is the doctrine man-made? What is it? Everybody's got questions. I would have to say, though, faith is really important in getting somebody through dark times. And I think right now people need faith more than they've needed it in a very long time,
Yes.
to get through. And I think a lot of people who were religious that turned away, turned to spirituality almost as a religion for them. And I think that's healthy because it's constructive. But I do wish more people, when they're lost, would maybe run to a church and a community and feel a part of something bigger than them, especially in a pandemic when a lot of the people I talk to are in countries that are still in lockdown, where they haven't been able to leave a 2-mile radius for 2 years.
Or even, even praying in your own home or
Sure.
opening the Psalms and reading Psalms. And,
Absolutely.
if you set an intention before you read it, like what you want, that you want to be at peace or you want to resolve some question you have, when you repeat these prayers or Psalms, that energy will go towards that intention.
Right. Because I mean, a lot of them are constructive. They're not all where we sit back and go, what? Beat them with what? So
But
I think there's something to be said about the community and faith.
But the other thing is, I mean, when I started, I used to be an investigative reporter before I became a healer. And when I started investigating healing, I was like, well, does God exist? What
Right.
does this mean if healings work?
Right.
And what I really came to understand is, you can call it spirituality, you can call it, I actually believe everything we experience spiritually is scientific. It's just how much we understand. And like in Galileo's time, we thought the sun and the moon and the heavens were God's domain. And now we think of that as man's domain.
Right.
So it's just a question of, the reality is the same. It's just what we want to talk about, how we want to talk about it.
It's how we are comfortable with tapping into that energy source, in a sense, within ourself, of empowerment and knowing everything's going to be okay.
Exactly. You can call it consciousness, you can call it spirit, whatever you want to call it, but
Right.
it does exist.
Right. It does. It does exist. This is
It does
true.
exist.
So I think people underestimate how stress can affect them physically. Have you noticed that in your healing sessions, how much more affected people have found out that they are by
Well,
stress?
I don't know if other people are as aware of it, but I can tell you that I think that stress is the precursor to so many illnesses
Yes.
and chronic illness, and it just builds up, and then there's a tipping point. And so, I think people know they're stressed, but they think they can handle it or live with it. And I just would recommend, if you feel stressed, do something about it before you get sick. Don't wait until,
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
because otherwise it's much harder to unwind once it becomes completely manifested in your physical body.
Yeah, and I think
So,
some people are wired to stress more, and some people seem wired to not worry at all. And sometimes I wonder and think, why couldn't I have been born one of those people that
oh, me
doesn't
too, me too.
stress?
I've spent, like, my whole spiritual arc has been de-stressing
Right.
and
That's true.
completely letting go of anxiety and allowing faith to lead. And I have to tell you, on top of that, I've learned that you can't solve anything with your mental body. Like thinking about it. You just have to stop thinking, which is also a way of de-stressing. And I
Right.
know that sounds crazy, and just allow the information to come from within and then
Well,
act on it.
and I would say to the women out there in the audience, I went to my naturopath, and in Arizona, a naturopath has to be board certified. So they're more educated than some have to be in other states.
Mm-hmm.
And she ran my blood panel and looked at my hormones. And she said, you stress so much. And I said,
Oh.
that's accurate. And she prescribed an herbal supplement called ADR, which is for your adrenal glands. And I
Oh.
didn't know this. I didn't know what my adrenal glands actually did. Your adrenal glands is where you process stress through. And she said, your adrenal glands are like dry. They're short circuited. They're
Oh.
empty. Like you need to feed them so that you have something to process the stress through without, it's like running a car with no oil in it. It's the
You know,
engine's going to burn out.
I mean, adrenal burnout is so common in our culture,
Yeah.
and it's just very prevalent.
Well, and I
So,
don't think people know that. I was surprised at how many women around the world didn't know that, because I would talk to clients in other countries and in my own, and I would tell them this because they're hormonal and they're stressed, and especially stressed now financially and otherwise. And they never heard of it either. And I just wonder why there's not a little bit more talk for the women out there with their hormones. And then I know men have shifts too at some point in life. Everybody should have like an educated naturopath to run their blood panels so we know where we're at. And then she said, are you taking testosterone supplements and estrogen supplements? And I said, I'm taking no supplements. And she goes, oh, I've only seen this once before. Your levels are so high. She had to give me detox pills to dump and get rid of the hormones of the testosterone and the estrogen. And
wow.
and my friends are like, I have to take estrogen supplements and you're dumping it. I was like, yeah, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. But I just encourage all the people out there that used to be able to handle the stress and now they're finding it hard to maybe look into seeing somebody who does run blood panels and run their hormone levels, because if they can get your hormone levels where you need them, you'll be able to handle your stress again. It's sometimes
Yes.
perception, and not that life got so horrible that you couldn't handle it. It's that your system can't handle it. Your
Well,
physical system.
actually, women's hormones fluctuate a lot more than
Of
men's,
course.
and so when you go through hormonal changes, there's often a great deal of stress, and
Right.
like when you have a baby, when
Sure.
you start menstruating, when you stop menstruating.
Lucky us.
So yeah. And then your system can't handle the stress the way it used to when there's a change in the hormones.
Right. And,
So
and, and for
yeah.
instance, when I was hormonal as a teenager, I was a competitive skater and I skated 7 days a week. So I took my angst out on the floor, throwing jumps and spins and skating 7 hours a day. And I had a way to process it. We get older, we have kids, all of a sudden we're busy. We don't take time for ourselves. We don't want to exercise anymore because it no longer feels fun because we're not 15, and things change. And so I just wanted to put that out there for some of the people who do feel stress. I find the meditation very helpful. There's like Headspace app that people can download for meditation. Because people always ask me if I do meditation classes. I'm like, nope, not my thing. But they do, and it's very helpful. And there's just ways to get in your happy place, whether it's watching football games or cooking with family members. Do something that distracts you from life and reminds you why you're here. Because right now we're creating our moments of heaven that we will relive later. And you don't want to miss out on the time that we're given, that we're gifted right now. But girls, well, and boys, go get your levels checked. You might be surprised at that you're really okay. You just need some herbal supplements or something. So I just thought I'd put that out there.
Yeah, no, that's so beautifully said. So
you're right. So when the virus hit the world, my clients' needs shifted slightly to more mental health issues. Since COVID-19 hit us, have you seen an increase in your clients' mental health?
Oh, I just see a lot of, it's hard for me to say. I see so many different things. But I do think that I'm thinking of some recent cases that people I've been working with. And I would say that yes, there was a tipping point from COVID. Not necessarily, some people did get COVID, but whether they did or not, they were home more and in close quarters with other family members. And some people had, all the issues that they'd been trying to heal for years came into an intensification, like a tornado.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I think age makes a difference too, because everybody, all the generations judged each other in COVID. You did this, you did that. It's like, can't we just live? And so I watched my daughter who got COVID. She had a 99-degree fever for 2 days and she was fine. And I took care of her. I took care of her, and I leave her food at the door with her medicine. And then I after her 10 days was over, cleaned all the bedding and Lysoled everything and tried to fumigate everything. But everything turned out fine. So I think generationally too, we're dealing with it better if you're young, because you don't really think about the consequences so much. And if you're older, you worry about the wear and tear you already have and how that can affect you. So it's interesting. I don't think we've ever had to worry about that. There's diseases that we have that will hit everybody, no matter what age you are. But this one, the young people seem to fare a little bit better than we do.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I think the other thing that happens is as you get older, you are aware that your body
mortality.
You have mortality.
You're facing your mortality. Yeah.
And, so you don't want to get sick because you just are aware more of the consequences when you're 20.
Right.
You just think you're invincible.
Well, and I think if you're a mother especially, you're like, what would my kids do without me? So then there's another level to it, because it's not that you want to stay for yourself necessarily, but you need to be here for them. You feel like a reason to be here. So, I mean, I read people all the time, and it's just interesting to see how everybody's perception and their perspective on everything really is. And I think a lot of people are afraid to die as well. So the whole idea of death scares the hell out of them. And I would say I've seen some really terrible ways to die. And I mean, violent ways, I deal with some heavy, heavy stuff. And so do you. And in some painful ways to go. So when this happened, my perspective was probably different than a lot of people, because I thought, well, my dad said a heart attack wasn't a bad way to die. He came through and told me that. And I've been bringing through COVID patients, and they say they weren't themselves. It was hard to breathe at first, and then they say they didn't feel any pain anymore, and they were sort of quiet but removed and visiting with people who had died before them, family members and friends. And they were being prepared to cross, and they let go. But all of them said they couldn't feel anything. And so that's how, when I'm doing a mediumship reading, it leads to COVID being mentioned, because then the family will say, oh yeah, they were on morphine, to get them
Oh,
comfortable. So when they give them the pain meds, they always say they were numb. They didn't feel anything, and they need
that,
their families to know that. So I
that's
thought it'd be good to
interesting. That's
mention. Yeah.
interesting. Did they have trouble crossing because they were on morphine? I always am concerned about that. No.
No,
Okay.
no. Morphine actually just makes them feel like they're asleep and they're not quite sure what's going on, but they can hear people around them. They always say they can hear people talking to them, but they can't respond, but that they heard them.
Well,
So no, I don't see the tension that I think a lot of people think they might be experiencing, because visually we're looking at them and we don't like watching people suffer that we love, or even strangers we don't like
mhm.
seeing suffer. But when I bring them through, they seem pretty content,
Happy. Yeah.
happy.
Well, it's
And
certainly a lot better than going violently, right?
yes, yeah. And it doesn't feel different than dying of pneumonia. It doesn't
Oh,
feel different
okay.
than that. So it's the same energy. So there's no trauma. They keep telling me there's no trauma.
Yeah.
So that's nice, but they worry about their loved ones. So I wanted to mention it anyways. Um,
Yeah.
have you used any of your techniques on any COVID patients?
I'm working with somebody now who has long COVID, but also a lot of other things. And yeah, and I've worked with some other COVID patients too, who,
Mm-hmm.
after one or two healings, whatever it was, resolved, which is very nice. That's not true with the case I'm working with now, but I think COVID might be the least of the issues that
Right.
she's really dealing with. And
Can you feel when they're gonna not make it? Can you feel when you're working in their energy when they can't be pulled back? That's interesting.
yeah, I always leave open the hope, but
Sure.
and it's not just with COVID patients. I've worked with cancer patients, and
Well, I
I
know that
remember,
because you worked on one of my
yeah,
friends.
yeah. Now she was an exception because I thought for sure when I saw her that she had maybe 2 weeks left.
Right. Well, she did. That's what
Yeah,
they told her. She was on her deathbed, and you
yeah, that's
brought
what
her
I
like
thought.
4 years. Yeah.
In that case, though, it was so specific. And I've never seen a case like that. I mean, every case is different and so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that was really amazing is she was really torn between her parents who had just passed and her children.
Well, her girls were still pretty young at
Yeah,
the
and
time.
the healing was about showing her that her girls needed her, and
Right.
and that she had a choice to make, and she made the choice to stay with her girls. It was just
Yeah.
amazing because she missed her parents so much that she
Sure.
stopped thinking, clearly. So, but to answer the
It's
question, yeah,
easier to let go than to fight to stay here, just so you know. It's easier
yeah,
for them to let go often. They actually have to fight to stay when their
especially when
soul's
your
being tugged at.
body is
Yeah.
riddled
I
with,
know Michelle
and
didn't look like herself anymore. That was very painful to
yeah,
know that she was experiencing that kind of um, destruction from within her body, because she was the
yeah,
sweetest soul. But you pushed her into remission for a few years that she got to spend with her girls.
that was
And I
amazing.
believe it was amazing. And I went to her funeral with Joe, and we went to her memorial. And I think her oldest was a senior in high school, if I'm not mistaken. And I was just really glad that she got to be there with them for their milestones just for a
Yeah.
little longer. So thank you for that.
Oh, it's always amazing and a pleasure to do, a healing.
Hmm.
Even when somebody's very sick, the feeling of connection
How
and
how do you get rid of
union.
the energy though after you heal somebody? Because that I get
Um,
rid of it from the dead. What I do, I have a process, but with you, what you do actually scares me more because you're dealing with the living. I deal with the living that are grieving, but I'm wired to do that. How do you do
oh, and I would be scared to do what you do. So there you go. And I couldn't do it. I just don't receive that kind of, it's interesting because well, I do a lot of spiritual practices. So I meditate every morning. I do various prayers and Vedic mantras almost every day. So that's before I do a healing. That's
Right.
before I step in. And, but the other thing is when I'm doing a healing, there's a merging, but there's also, I retain my sense of self. So I'm totally merged on one level, but I'm also myself. And what I'm doing is I'm holding a state and allowing that person or inviting that person to come into that state. So a high vibration. And in that vibration, things just release, which, it's a doing, but it's not at the same time. And so a lot of times, even if somebody is very sick, not always, but like I just did a healing with a woman who is in a terrible state. Some of it might be COVID, but there was also some childhood abuse, terrible childhood abuse and things like that. And the healing was so uplifting. There was so much bliss and union. And then I got to this place where I could feel, the pain in her heart. And I just held space for that to release. And she did spend the week crying and things like that, but
letting it out.
So much went away. Yeah. And she felt better after that. She cried. As I said to her, I said, I think you're going to cry. I said, but you know how the world is really sparkly after it rains.
Right. That's why I send people to you. I'm like, my specialty is the dead. That's what I do. And I can help after somebody's died, or sometimes I get information where the dead will say, you need to have your dad's heart checked, and they'll get it checked and they will get a diagnosis that he would have died in 2 months. It was like a widowmaker. And so I can get that kind of information. But what you do is so healing on all levels. And I just think it's amazing. And you help pregnant women that are having fertility issues too, right?
Yes. Well, I help women who aren't pregnant who would like to be.
But I also my mistake.
I remember I went on a date once and I said that I'd gotten like a number of women pregnant. He just turned totally freaked out.
You're like, I'm populating the world.
Well, because men who don't think they want to go on a date and get women pregnant, right?
Right.
So, and I've also helped women during their pregnancy. There was one woman a long time ago who I helped get pregnant, and then the embryo wasn't the right shape. The doctor said the baby would be okay, but the embryo wasn't quite normally shaped. And I did a healing, and voila, and I can nenever promise I can do this a second time,
Right.
But the embryo was normal on the next scan.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and I've heard did you do visualization? That's visualization technique, right? Or did you move energy around with your hands? How did you do it?
Well, it was long distance. That's a whole other topic, right?
No hands involved.
No hands, no body. I just did a healing on somebody, and a family member was so horrified that I wasn't in the room. And then, even worse, I got off the Zoom call to do the actual transmission, because that's what I do. Because it sounds so inconceivable. But how does that happen? It's hard to put into words, but again, it's that sense of union and connection and intention. So I just hold that space for things to be right. And
we see it from such different perspectives, because when I do a life reading, for instance, and a woman mentions wanting to get pregnant and she has fertility issues, sometimes I tap into the husband to see if that's who she's actually supposed to be with. And then I have to have a bit of a conversation with her about their relationship. And it'll turn out that she's only with him because she wants to get pregnant. And I'm like, okay, look, although there are plenty of people that get pregnant that probably shouldn't the night after being at a bar, this is a situation where the universe is saying to you, you're barking up the wrong tree. Yeah. Think about this, and there's somebody better for you that this is going to work with, but this is not where you belong. But they want to force they want to force the action to happen. So it's not always in our hands, because on a universal level, it's not always supposed to happen. that
You know what?
baby.
I'm so glad you're finding the same. I mean, I've actually probably treated more women who the issue was with the men than with the women.
Right.
I mean, or if maybe it's 50-50, which in the beginning I just found remarkable. And there was one case, what you're talking about, it was actually a woman who went to, she was a single, mom, hoping to be a mom by choice. And she had used a donor. And the first healing I did, I said, this isn't the right donor. I mean, you think it's completely random, but it is not.
Right.
And I can't tell you, but I just had a very strong sense this wasn't the right donor. And she was very angry with me. She was like, oh, no, he's wonderful. This is the donor. It's like, okay. She couldn't get pregnant. She went through 10 IUIs, and, intrauterine.
Yes.
And never got pregnant. And,
and I want to say for the record, you had a son later in life, right?
Yes, I did.
So you worked on yourself for pregnancy?
I did.
And you were successful. You know of what you speak.
Yes, I know. Yes. And in this case, this woman, she got a note from the sperm bank telling her that he had the gene for BRCA2, which causes breast cancer.
Wow.
And so she immediately changed donors. Now, that wasn't the reason he wasn't the right donor. It had something, it was something else. It had to do with his intellect or some other qualities in his being. But when she got that letter, she changed donors, and then the doctors decided she needed a little procedure. She had it. She got pregnant immediately. And I know it's because the donor changed.
Right.
So,
sometimes we're beating our head against the wall. We're like, we're not saying it to you to be difficult. We're trying to help you to get where you want to be.
Yeah,
with the donors, I wish they'd look a little closer at those donors before they start using their materials to make sure that they're a quality genetic option for women who are going through so much to try and have a baby,
Yeah. And sometimes, it's not that the man is the wrong donor per se or the wrong partner, but, if the man isn't really wanting a child, that is also more of an obstacle.
That's true. I see that in life readings where I see one partner doesn't actually want that child and the person can't get pregnant. And they're angry at their partner for not wanting it. And ladies, take your lives in your hands. It's like,
because
they'll say, yeah, I know he doesn't want kids. He said he never wanted to be a father, but it's what I want. And you have to think. And I actually had this thought when I was with Joe, and I don't even know why I thought it, because I was 21 when we got married. And I thought, would he be a good dad? I asked myself that before I married him. And the answer was, yeah, he'd be a fantastic dad. He'd be like that crazy great dad. And we got married and immediately had Aurora and had 3 daughters, and he's the best dad. And I think people miss out on a lot there too when you lower the bar for the father in the picture, because the kid gets gypped. And I know we all can't have an idyllic situation, but, give them a shot at least, at having that dad that wants to be there. That's all.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And if you're going to the bar and you're going to be doing a bunch of shots, there's a lot of birth control options out there, ladies. Use them. Doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. So, are you working on any new projects or books?
Well, I have a project that I haven't been working on. So
what do you want to do?
I have an idea for a TV show. So I have to sit down and maybe we'll talk about it. I have to pull it together. I've actually started it, and then when COVID hit, it was all I could do. My son was home 24/7, basically.
You wanted a boy. You got a boy.
I love being his
Quality
mom, but
time.
it was no playmates, Zoom classes that he couldn't bear, and
how old is he?
Now he's 8. But every 5 minutes he would come upstairs from his Zoom class and go, "Oh, mommy, I love you so much. I just wanted to give you a kiss."
Oh, that's so sweet.
It was sweet. But
you know how many women want that son? They're like, I want
he's
that.
a beautiful boy. I'm not complaining, but I just had to devote myself. Do you know what I mean? To the moment that was happening. It's hard to write when you have to entertain your 6 and 7-year-old.
Our daughter graduated, Sophia graduated May of 2020. Poor kid. So she couldn't walk in procession or anything, no parties. So I would be doing a reading. This is the other flip side of what you're doing. And she'd come in a little zombie-like with her hair messed up. And she'd be like, "Mom, what's for lunch?" And I'm just like, "The phone."
I had that too.
And she'd back out and close the door. She's like, "Sorry." And I'm like, "Oh my God."
Max would come in and like wave and I'd be on the phone with the Zoom call with the client and be like, "Hi."
Oh my gosh. See, we're real. We're very real people, aren't we? So is your show scripted or is it reality based?
It would be scripted, somewhat reality based.
That's funny. I read somebody yesterday that I think would be a very good connection for you. So we'll talk after we're done recording because
I just have
everything
to
happens
sit down
for a
and do
reason.
it. Yeah.
Right. No, I know. And this woman was highly inspirational and was also a professor of film.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Well, I'll just say in California and leave it at that.
Of course.
Suspected. Well, thank you for sharing this with our audience. And are you how can people get a hold of you if they want to reach you?
Yeah. Okay. So the best way is Diane at DianeGoldner.com to email me. That's just the fastest way. I read my emails. I can't say as you know, my phone is always
right.
My voicemail is full. And you can go to DianeGoldner.com too. But email me.
No Instagram yet, huh?
I do have Instagram. Yeah. And I have Facebook. Instagram, you can reach me on Instagram. I never think of that as the way to reach me, but yes, you can.
Okay. So for all the younger people out there, this will be at AlisonDubois.com with links to all of her social media. How's that?
And I am going to be teaching a new class, which I said, I think a while ago that I was going to be starting one, but it is going to start in either January or February, and it will be posted by early December on my website.
Okay.
And it is a class if you want to understand how energy works, if you want to do healing, if you want to be intuitive. This class is just it takes you from, well, I think it attracts people who really have an innate gift, but it takes you from what you might think is zero to pretty high up.
We might have to do a little collaboration because I have Dead University right now, and I could just add you as a professor.
I would
make
be
this
delighted.
A lot easier for you because I have some psychics clairvoyants that come forward that are they're healers, and I refer them all to you. Anyways, so we'll do that.
Okay.
We'll talk.
Okay.
Well, happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. I'm Alison Dubois. To all of my believers out there, don't stop believing and gobble, gobble.